Hello, bowling fans. This is Dustin J. Markowitz coming to you taped, as always, from the gem along the Colorado River, Laughlin, Nevada, bringing yet another edition of your favorite bowling show, Bowling Evolved. Joining me, as always, is my partner in crime, one of the premier left-handers in PBA Tour history, a millionaire in the PBA Tour, and a guy who still doesn't know where all that money went to, the one and only Eric Forkel. Eric, how you doing tonight?
I do know where it went. I just can't remember. I'm doing great, Chief. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Before we get started into the show, though, I do want to do a quick serious note for the tragedy that has happened today. Boston Marathon, I'm sure if anyone's been watching the news, the explosions that rocked Boston, I know we have several fans from that area that listen to the show weekly, and I know our thoughts and prayers are definitely with them and their families.
Absolutely. Our hearts go out to them. I just don't understand the senseless tragedy. I just don't get it. I don't know what motivates people to do such heinous things, but unfortunately it's the sad society that we live in.
Agree wholeheartedly, but the good news is about being here in America, we have to push forward. We have to be able to look past tragedy and remember what makes us happy. And, you know, for us, it's definitely bowling, and I think tonight's guest is definitely going to instill those feelings of having fun and enjoying the sport because, frankly, Eric, I think he's one of the most colorful people on the PBA.
Did you say bowling makes us happy?
I think so.
Wow, you must be drinking again, but okay. Yeah, I think it can make everybody very happy, and I think if everybody in the world just would go bowling more often, I think we'd have a lot less problems in this world.
I think so as well, but ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce our guest tonight. He's a three-time PBA national champion, the poster boy for Motiv bowling right now, and I believe the expression is the typical house bowler. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Dick Allen. Dick, how you doing tonight?
What's up? I'm doing good.
What's up, Dick, my brother?
How are you, sir?
Doing good. Poster boy, huh? Very good. I like that. Very good. Typical house bowler. Okay, all right.
You know, I gotta say, we've had a lot of different guests on the show, and you know, obviously as a Motiv staffer myself, you know, Dick is definitely one of the ones that I look up to as far as my equipment goes. And Dick, let me start right there. I mean, you've been throwing Motiv now. What's your impression of the company, and how do you like the equipment?
I'll tell you what, the company is the place to be. The people there are tremendous. They've made me felt at home like nobody else has. As far as the equipment goes, I mean, I believe we're the complete lineup in bowling. I really do. I mean, some people say we have some niche balls, but you know, we've got some stuff that's really starting to get around the corner. We've got some stuff coming out here soon that's really, really darn good, and we've got a touch ball right now that's, you know, getting a lot of buzz. So
What is the biggest difference then between what do you see? The biggest difference between the Motiv product compared to the other products out there on the market?
Right now, I think our stuff might be a little bit smoother. Not as jerky down lane. More of a player's ball right now. I mean, if you ask me, we have a lot of cores, a lot of core shapes. We use a lot of maxed numbers in some areas like differential and mass bias and RG, and you know, some people might consider those niche areas. You know, when you start putting all that stuff together, you know, you can come up with a really darn good arsenal. You know, maybe we don't have a lot of the big cavity back balls like some other companies do right now, but you know, for the people who really want to get down and fine tune their bag from top to bottom, you know, I think we've got a really good selection.
So you feel you have balls that you've got symmetrical cores, you have asymmetrical cores, you have balls that flare quite a bit, and you have balls that flare a lot less. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we've got, you know, max low RG, max high RG, we've got max dip, we've got tiny dips, we've got big mass biases, we've got little mass biases. You know, I mean, we've got a lot going on.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. I mean, it's becoming more and more popular, at least from what I see out here in the Vegas area. I don't know across the country, but I'm assuming the way things are looking, looks like your product is really taking off. And I know you got some good people behind it. We've had the pleasure of having them on our show and talk to them, and it was a great interview. And you got to like it when it's built here in the United States. You got to love that. So
Yeah.
very positive, and looks like they're coming around. Looks like things are moving really good.
Yes, I think they've got a good business model. Those guys are businessmen. They know what they're doing. So I just appear in a commercial every now and then, and I do what they tell me to do, and I just try and go out there and make them look good.
Wow, that's pretty cool. You get to do commercials, and that's nice. It's always good.
We joke around a lot about, Eric and I go back and forth between Storm and Motiv, and, I truly believe that a lot of the different bowling ball companies, no one has necessarily a bad product. I mean, I think you can find something in every line, but I know at least from my time with the company, the equipment has really matched up well with my game. And now let me ask you this. You've been out on tour now for several years, Dick, and you've had a chance to throw some different stuff and see a lot of changes. What changes do you see that Motiv continues to make, and what changes have you seen on the PBA that they need to make to match up with the changing conditions?
Right now, I think we're at a disadvantage, obviously, player-wise. We've only got 2 national staffs. Our staff's a little smaller compared to some other companies. And, we also don't make bowling balls for anybody else. So, as the week goes on, there are less people throwing our stuff out on tour. That's one area where hopefully we get the pickup soon, where, more guys start trying out our stuff. Maybe some cover stocks, some balls that want to, because our stuff is a little bit smoother, a little bit sooner. Maybe a couple of balls here and there that get down the lane really well and recover really well. I mean, those are our 2 biggest obstacles, if you ask me.
But it seems to be, a lot of people have their different opinions, and it seems that the company continues to strive forward. But moving off of that subject, looking a little bit at your own game over the last few years, how would you rate yourself out on the PBA Tour, and what do you think so far of the new PBA as it is?
Oh man, my first year was in 1999. When I came out there, guys like Eric were bowling really good. I got to watch a lot of veterans, and I got to watch that little age of reactive growing up. Like right when it started to come out, and the game has really become a lot more scientific since the mid 90s. They know a lot more now. I'm pretty sure back then, with all the resin balls that were coming out, nobody really knew what was going on. You found a couple balls that rolled good, and you kept drilling them like that, whatever came out. Things are a little different nowadays. You can do a lot more. As far as the new PBA, I wish there was a little more variation in where you had to play the lanes and how you had to attack them when you started. I remember when I first came out on tour, if you couldn't play straight to stay alive for a few games until they opened up, you were in a lot of trouble, and I experienced that, and I tried to learn a straighter game. And as I've become a veteran of sorts, you always try and stay a little straighter, and they run the patterns flat enough and in odd enough spots where playing straight from the get-go isn't necessarily the best thing to do. And almost, if, the new thing nowadays is you really have to get left and be able to go coast to coast. And, if anything, that's the new B game that you have to learn out on tour nowadays. If you can't do that, if you can't replicate it, you're not going to make a lot of money.
Eric, it kind of goes back to something we had talked about before about the shot makers, as I'm sure you recall. Now, Dick, do you think that the modern patterns take away from the traditional shot makers then?
There's not a lot of variance in distance. Sometimes, a lot of it depends on the house and the field. Like when we bowl in Vegas at South Point, the place already hooks. There's 200 and some people bowling every squad. or half the field ball in every other squad. And it gets pretty hectic, and the oil dissipates quickly, and you end up playing a zone where only about 10% of the guys can really play really well that are bowling the tournament. And, it's kind of like back in the day when, if you couldn't play straight and keep up with Walter out the gates and Norm, you were in trouble. And nowadays, if you can't get in there and really wheel it, come later in the last couple of blocks, you're in a lot of trouble, or even from the get-go. So, it's taking away from the shot makers, yes, in a way. I mean, you can't really say that because look at Weber. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the guy's a great shot maker.
He's the exception to the rule, but don't you think it's because of his hand action, the way the ball comes off his hand, his motion, which is still very unique with that 90 degrees of the axis rotation?
Yeah, it is. I mean, his ball does what the big hook size balls do. He's that exception to the rule. I mean, he's always been the exception to the rule. Yeah, somebody just stole the word right out of my mouth. I mean, from 1977 when people first started getting, wow, this guy can really bowl, till 2013 when, he's unique. No, he's always been unique. I mean, he's like one of the greatest ever. So you can't really use him as a standard.
Just like Walter Ray, but in a different way. Yes.
Exactly. I mean, Walter Ray even tries to bowl with his thumb out of it and two-handed now because he knows that he needs his rev rate to go up and his axis rotation to, get higher and get further down the lane. And when he has his thumb in the ball, he can't do that.
No.
So it does take away from the shot makers in a way.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's just a shame. They created this environment definitely in my opinion, for the two-handed players to create the speed and revs and the conditions to, at least to my eye, has to be a certain way for those guys to maximize their ability. And they're almost playing to that. And all the other guys, like yourself and the rest, you have to find a way to adapt, either with equipment, different hand positions. But the tweener type player, I think, seems to me the tweener player is in the most difficult spot.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I don't know why I hate that word. I think some of the terminology for crankers and strokers and tweeners needed to be tossed out the window.
It's just a generic word that a lot of people can still understand. In other words, the two-handed high rev players is one way, and then you've got guys, say like a Michael Haugen style. You've got that style, and that can still play. It looks like. So to me, you've either got to be real straight or really get in there and knock the holes out of it. It seems like the guys in the middle, they seem to have trouble. That's what it seems.
Yes, even when you go straighter, you have to be able to do something that no other straight guy can do.
Exactly. A niche. You got to have a niche. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and it comes down to that part of the lane where they don't want you playing there for one, so they don't let you, and it forces everybody in, and everybody bowls in the same spot, and then you get migrated to a part of the lane where, like I said, only 10% of the people can play, and it becomes a real different game. But don't get me wrong, there's one way to fix it, but there's also another way to fix it, and my way of saying it is, if you can't beat them, join them, and even at 35 this year, for the last 2 or 3 months, I've been trying really hard to pick Belmo's brain and Oscar's brain, and I'm dabbling on bowling some with my thumb out of it and throwing it two-handed.
Another conversion.
I've talked to Rick Benoit. He watched me bowl at the Tournament of Champions. After I was knocked out of the tournament. I was messing around a little bit, but I have a decent foundation to be able to add that as some sort of game to where if I need that in Game 7 or Game 8 of a block, and I have to jump another 10 or 15 left where those guys are and get away from that portion of the lane that I shouldn't be playing any longer because I can only shoot 197 if I bowl great. Now it's just like, taking your wrist out of it and throwing knuckleballs up the gutter. except it's version 2.0. You know, you've got to take a totally different mind thought on it, and you've got to try it. You've got to do anything you can to be able to mimic that.
No, I understand. I mean, there's no doubt when we talked about this before. You've really got to be a free thinker. Your thought has really got to go all over the place. However, if it's got to come to the point where you're going to bowl, in my opinion, with your thumb in the ball for so many games, and then you got to go, now I got to take my thumb out. Now I got to jump a couple of arrows left. Now I got to do this and that. I mean, if you can do that, that would be spectacular, because that's almost unheard of. That's like telling Belmo, say, look, you got to put your hand in the ball. You've got to move about 20 right, and you got to throw it normal. I mean, these guys.
Well, and if you wanted to do that, you know, when they run a pattern, you know, even though it's flat and it's super flat, you can make it 1.1 to 1, whatever you want. At 20 on the lane, there's still going to be more oil than there is at 5. So there's always going to be some sort of ramp, you know, and your ball, at that point when the ratio is that low, your ball has to have mega rev rate to be able to read it. So if you moved that shelf further right, you know, if you really move that shelf further right and offset the, you know how they offset the lane to the lefties back in the day?
Yeah, of course.
If you offset it to the other side, you make all the righties start up the gutter, and every time you move left of 13, you're moving into less and less and less oil.
Mm-hmm.
That's a simple way to now you can break down the right side of the lane, you can let some shot makers play, and then eventually it's going to open up. It always does. Look at the balls.
Of course. That's why you can bowl, I mean, you can basically bowl, at least it appears, a U.S. Open type pattern, but then as the day goes on or as the games build in the block, something's going to develop. Some place the ball that's going to cliff. There's going to be a spot where you got a little bit of right, maybe a pinch left. You got a little bit of area. It's going to develop somewhere somehow, regardless of, because that's just what happens when the guys with the rev rates can break the patterns down. So, especially if they break them down in a smart way, they can make the lane quite nice.
Well, I tell you what, after watching these guys for the last handful of years up close.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that you can't beat them. I mean, they don't win every tournament, but
I understand.
Yeah, their ball does do something that I mean, it's like Mark Roth all over again. It's like Pete Weber all over again.
It's like when Mike Miller took his thumb out of the ball and was one of the first guys to bowl thumbless and win, or Bob Benoit. I mean, it's just
exactly.
It's different, it's unique, and and those guys who are out there, they're the best. I mean, there's only a handful, like a couple, one or two of them, and other people I think have tried, but nobody does it as well as they do. So they're really unique.
Oh, no.
And they got it. They have it all to themselves.
Yes.
It's very unique.
Oscar and Belmo told me that there are a couple other guys that can do it, pretty darn well. But they already do it good enough with their thumb in it. Like Dominic Barrett does it really good. Like I sat there and bowled with Dominic two-handed for about 15 or 20 minutes at the TSC.
Right.
And, what he can do two-handed is pretty darn impressive in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they get that speed and they get that ball to shoot through the upslope and then back down on the other side of the pattern and still get it to return is freakishly amazing. I mean, it's Robert Smith-like when he was in his heyday and those guys weren't around yet.
It's just amazing. It's amazing where this thing has all gone to, and and it really is something. But that as you are still, obviously you're a professional bowler, still trying to make a living in an environment that's really challenging to make a living because they don't give you the amount of tournaments that we used to have. So it's a shame. You have less time, and the competition is really good, and the environment has changed quite dramatically. So we talked about it before. Being a professional bowler nowadays is incredibly hard.
It's way harder than it is when I first came out. When I first came out, you had the week to week, approaches of different lengths, different surfaces. Some guys, you'd be amazed at how long it takes some guys to adjust to the length of an approach. I mean, you should know that as much as you've practiced around all the places.
Of course.
And and what you learn, and how to adjust and how to bowl in different environments is a lot. You can have a bad week and come back the next week and everything's completely different.
Yes.
You're bowling nowadays out on tour, like you said, you get a lot less time. You're bowling in one place for multiple events.
Yeah.
And if you're shut out early, your odds of coming back and bowling well and making money are hard.
Yeah.
Because you're already locked out. You're already up against a hill that you're not going to figure out how to get out of because it's just not conducive to what you're doing.
That's why when Dustin and I have talked about this, how is the new way that things are going, especially out on tour, how is this growing the sport of bowling? How can bowling, or the sport of it, how can it grow in this environment?
I don't know. I show up 30 minutes before my starting time and say here, and then I proceed to go bowl because I'm entered in the tournament. I'm at the point in my career where, I'm still trying to win. I still want to do some things. So, in a way, when I'm at home, I do the best I can to bowl locally and to promote the regional tour to the best that I can because it's not really my job to promote the big tour. It's the owners and the media. That's their deal. That's them growing the sport. If they see another avenue that they think they can affect 150,000 kids by doing this directly and then condensing it and then putting it all in one area to save money so they can spend money to grow the sport at another grassroots level, that's none of my business. If they tell me to do something, I'll go along with the guidelines, and I'm not really that kind of a guy, but if they want me to say these types of things, I will, because that's them telling me this is going to help grow the sport. But, the best thing I feel I can do is, we have 3 weekends in a row in South Carolina, Columbia area where we have a bowling tournament. And 2 of them are in my city, me, Randy Weiss, and there's, guys are coming from Atlanta now to bowl these tournaments. But, I try and talk people into bowling regionals. Get the professional experience. It will make you better. You're bowling against better competition, better bowlers, and, that's how I try to grow the sport professionally myself. As far as what they're trying to do to grow the sport, I don't have the little manila folder, with all their little guidelines that they think that they can do. So
how do you think? Let me ask you this. How do you feel? You being obviously heavily involved with Motiv, what do you think Motiv is doing to help grow the sport?
We have PBA product registered. So, that helps get our name out there for one. It helps get a different choice into maybe a new bowler's hands where, they're trying to say, look, I know this company makes balls for them, and I've had experience with, look, we do the, player section. That's what we want. We want to be able to build your whole arsenal. We want you to be able to enjoy it. We have vibrant colors. We try to attract people with self-appeal. Growing the sport, I think Motiv is more in the lines of being a ball seller. They want to be in the competition. So as far as growing the sport, I think they're involved in it enough already to where they get league bowlers coming back and throwing more strikes and having more fun.
It's interesting too, Dick, and on that same note, I've been fortunate enough to deal with Motiv not only as a staffer, but when I was working as a tournament coordinator. And, the one thing that I will definitely say about the company, I'm sure you'll agree, it's run as a family, and I think that relates back to the bowlers as well. You don't feel like you're having to deal with a corporation. Say if you have an issue with a bowling ball or you have a problem with the company, it's a very personal atmosphere. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, I can honestly say that I've been very blessed in my bowling career and what I've had a chance to experience, but it's nice to have that. And, I also want to say, growing the sport on the local and regional level, and Eric, as we've talked about many times, I truly agree with you 100%. I think that's where the focus needs to lie. And that's not just on the PBA, though. I think that also goes for USBC in trying to build bowling in general. I believe that so much focus is being pulled away.
Here's my thing. If you look at, I mean, I'm an avid golfer. I'm right around a 5 or 6 handicap. I mean, I love playing golf. I'm very passionate about it. And I'm a little tech geek when it comes to it. I've already got a very competitive side. So, when I go play, I want to beat all my friends. And I think bowling needs to go more in that direction. I don't think there's enough science there is enough science involved. Don't get me wrong. But all that knowledge is on a need-to-know basis within the companies. They're trade secrets. If you're not a top-level staffer, there's going to be some information that you will never receive. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And I think that's the thing that holds other bowlers back from being more competitive. And getting more people more competitive, I think, is the best way to go about growing our sport. I mean, you can't tell. I don't know too many people, even when they go to play for fun at golf, when they go to play for fun, that they don't have one of the newest and latest drivers with the most science involved in it. And they know exactly what that science is supposed to do. You take 8.5 out of 10 bowlers that come into the pro shop, and they're not going to be able to tell you what RG means. They're not going to be able to tell you what the coefficient of restitution means. They're not going to tell you what, differential means. They're not going to tell you what core specs are. They're not going to understand any of this. And, I've learned some of that on the pro shops, but that's not my business to be pointing fingers. It's the pro shop guys. So it's still at the pro shop guys. I'll point that finger. That's fine, whatever. So, and probably the people that actually make the balls as well. I don't think they put enough effort into, giving the bowler the information they need that's packed into a golf club.
Well, let me ask out of curiosity, let me just ask you this too, because you're mentioning golf to bowling, and I find this interesting. The one thing about golf is that there's a lot of prestige involved with golf, and I mean on the professional level, on the amateur level.
And that's why they're always walled up when you go bowl. Nobody wants to be embarrassed in front of 40 or 50 other people by shooting 137.
Sure. So the question now becomes: is there enough prestige involved with bowling to achieve the same thing?
No, because people are scared. Just like the parents whose child plays soccer and their team goes 0-6 because they suck. They still expect a trophy. No. Get on a better team, practice better, do something different. If you go 0-6, maybe you should look at the violin and not play soccer next year, Billy. Move when the ball comes at your face, kid. If you don't have the instincts to play soccer, you shouldn't play it. You don't get a trophy at the end. Simple as that. And it's the same way with bowling. Hey, you don't throw it very good. Practice, change something. We're not changing the shot for you. You're going to continue to average 146 because you're not good. If you want to get better and you want to see your scores improve, get a lesson.
That's, and Eric and I have talked about this a lot, about the house patterns and the shots, and people want, I can't stress this enough, and to all of our listeners, everyone always wants to complain about everything but themselves, and, one of the biggest problems that I see in bowling, and as far as people wanting to improve, is that they don't take the time to try to improve themselves. They don't go out there and practice. They don't go get, a different bowling ball. When you're throwing an LT-48 from, 35 years ago and you're wondering why the ball's not hooking.
Are you kidding me? That's the best thing you can practice with. That's like practicing with a blade from 1977. If you don't hit it square, it's not going to go anywhere. And by the time you get new technology, I tell all my friends around town, there is no rule in the USBC that says you have to throw a ball that's made this year. I don't know why you guys aren't taking out your plastic balls, throwing the best shots that you can, learning the intricacies of the release. Okay, hey, fine, you sacrifice 25 pins a game and carry. Whatever, you're getting better. You're bowling one of the better teams in the league. All right, let me pull out my reactive ball. I've been practicing for the last 4 weeks with this plastic ball, or this ball that does nothing. And all of a sudden you shoot 740. Hey, it's called getting better. It's legal sandbagging, and nobody does it.
I like
Are you
that.
kidding me? Everybody wants to complain about sandbaggers, and there's a legal sandbagging maneuver right in front of you. Do it back.
Legal?
I mean, it is. It's legal sandbagging. You can't tell me I'm going to go out there and average. I bowled league in Columbia once in like the last 5 or 6 years. I bowled summer league with my mom and my stepdad, and that's just a fun league. I don't even try. But in the fall league, I bowled once in like the last 5 years, and I averaged 246 last year. I threw it everywhere. I'd never tried, and it was literally no fun. And it's to the point where I think the next time I bowl league, I just think I might do that. What's to stop me from moving to left of where I should be playing with my plastic ball? Because I know I can probably throw some strikes, but I'm not going to average 240 something with my plastic ball. You know what I'm saying? Move a couple left, leave the 245 every shot, and just make good shots. Because trying to leave the 245 every shot is not going to be real easy. But hey, it's good practice. Make all my spares, average 196. I'm trying my hardest. I'm covering all my spares, and I'm shooting 585 every week. It's legal sandbagging.
That's definitely.
Nobody says anything about it.
I have to be honest, that is a very unique viewpoint. I don't think I've ever considered that.
There you go.
But no, I mean, it's definitely interesting.
Well, you never considered taking your thumb out of the ball and bowling with 2 hands in games 7 or 8 when you need it either.
That's.
And about 10, 15 years ago, that conversation would never come up.
Yeah.
It would just be move deeper and switch balls or do this or that. It would never be, I should take my thumb out of the ball and throw it with 2 hands. That would never have come up. Never, ever.
Well,
it just goes to show how, even though things have changed quite a bit through the years, there's still unique things that happen now out on tour. These are the same unique things that happened, say, 15, 20 years ago. It's just another time and something new and different is happening. But the better players through the years, they've always learned to adapt through one way or another. There's always some sort of an adapting. And if you don't adapt, then unfortunately you're going to miss your window or your time, and things are going to kind of go by the wayside. So you do have to be creative. I really do think so. It's just a question if you can do it. And if you can do it, well, that's terrific. More power to you.
I mean, it's a crazy game. I mean, it really is. And I mean, I see so many similarities to it. I mean, I think Jack Nicklaus is our best spokesman. He says it's the ball. Slow the ball down. Slow the ball down. In a way, it's the same thing with us. Slow the ball down. If you want to make people better as a whole, you need to slow the ball down. If you want bowlers as a whole to get better, you've got to slow the ball down. But maybe we just need bifurcation of the rules.
Well, yeah, or I mean, like we
maybe the pros should bowl with one thing and everybody else can bowl with that, or maybe sanctioned bowlers should bowl with one thing and everybody else can bowl with what they want.
That's definitely an interesting viewpoint. I know a lot of people have talked about the slowing down of technology, but we do have to get ready for our first break here. Dick, it's really been a pleasure having you on the show, but there is one final question I need to ask before we let you go, and this one's kind of a doozy, so I got to ask you, are you ready?
Yeah.
Eric and I have had this debate since we first started the show, and Eric, you know exactly where I'm going with this, and I think he is going to be so great to answer this.
Okay, why not?
We have asked pretty much every guest that's been involved with the show, bowling, is it a sport or is it a game? Dick, what is your opinion?
I think it's a conflict. You know, there is no physical interaction, but there is, you know, I mean, why do we play games, first of all? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, it's something you want to do. It's something fun. It's a challenge to overcome the obstacles set in front of you, imaginary obstacles, basically, that, you know, you've created and just set up in front of you, and you're going around and playing them. You know, sport, game, it really teeters on the edge because you do interact with other people's equipment and how it messes with the lane. So that challenge always arises, and to me it's more of a conflict of, it's a sport, but it's not a physical sport.
Well, I think
more of a conflict. You know, it doesn't fit the definition of a game. You know, bowling does not fit the definition of a game. It doesn't fit the definition of a toy either. You know, I mean, it fits the definition of a conflict.
I kind of like that description. I'm not going to lie.
So is it a conflict between the person who's playing the sport game conflict, or is it a conflict of within your mind of what you're trying to do? Because it's definitely not a conflict of hand-to-hand combat in the trenches with a fellow bowler, so to speak. You're not touching anyone.
No, yeah, it's a conflict without the physical interactiveness.
So you're speaking more along the terms of a mental conflict.
Yes. I mean, there are obstacles out there that you need to overcome. You know, lane conditions, pin carry. You know, the way other people are breaking down the lanes. You know, I mean, and your own mental fatigue and focus. You know, and what you're capable of recognizing with what's going on. And you know, it like I said, there's a big challenge in there mentally.
Okay. There's
a big challenge there physically. You know, but with no physical interactiveness, you know, with the other competitors, it's not really a sport. It is more of a conflict.
Okay, well, that's an interesting way of describing it. Conflict. I've always perceived it as a complicated game. At times, in a certain environment with in a certain situation, I look at it as a sport. But when I watch people bowl league and average 225 and bowl once a week, or maybe even once a month, or go out and average 230, because it's so simple because of the conditions in the bowling balls, it's hard for me to call that a sport. Okay,
exactly.
I call that a game, a fun game, a recreational game. But then there is a professional side to it because I've done it. I've seen you guys. I know what it's like to bowl out there in that environment. It's very difficult. It's challenging. It's a professional situation. It feels like you're involved in a sport. But then again, what goes on with the bowling balls, the lanes, all the other stuff to the side of it, then I don't know if that really is a sport. But there's a lot of wear and tear. You know,
there's a video on YouTube by Vsauce. You know, just the letter V and then sauce, and it's called "Why Do We Play Games?" And I guess to if you want to get rid of the conflict label, I guess the best way of putting it, seeing is that all the practice that you do, all the things that you try to do in this challenge that we have, it's more of an advanced skills competition when you get to the professional level.
There's no doubt about it. And of course, because I was out there for so many years, I have nothing but respect for everybody. That's why when they say, "Oh, it's definitely a sport," it's definitely a sport. Well, but if you look at bowling as the whole picture of bowling, like I said, you look at the recreational side of it and the league side of it. I'm sorry, if people want to call that a sport, I got a little problem with that. I can't call that a sport. Now, you go bowl the U.S. Open, or when the environment's very difficult and you're bowling against the best players in the world, I would call that a really good sports environment. Sure, absolutely. You gotta repeat things. You gotta lift bowling balls. You've got to be in decent physical bowling shape, not necessarily athletic shape, but you got to be in bowling condition. I mean, there's definitely gruelingness that goes along with it. But when you look at it as when you ask the question, is bowling a game or a sport? Well, you know what? I like to look at it as a very challenging and complicated game. I just have a hard time of saying it's a sport. And that's where this running thing between Dustin and I has been going on for 7 or 8 months, and he always likes to ask people that, and most of the time they're going to say, oh, no, this is a sport. And that's where we have this little bit of a fun debate over. And it is an interesting question. I like the complex is a pretty good word.
An advanced skills sporting competition. I mean, because you have to include it in sporting if you're going to include some outdoor sports like duck hunting or clay shooting. You know, if those are going to be sporting events, you know, I mean, those are also advanced skills competitions. You know, but they call them sporting events.
Badminton's a sporting event. What's the thing they play in the Olympics where they on the ice where they kind of dust it and then the thing slide?
Curling. Yeah.
Curling. That's definitely a sport. I mean, I'm just saying. It's really strange how, you know, I mean, do you consider golf a sport?
I also consider that a very advanced skills competition.
I would look at it as a skills competition. Do you consider a jockey who rides a horse? Do you think horse racing is a sport?
No.
No. What about car racing?
I consider that guy a rider.
What about car racing?
He rides. I mean, he's like a race car driver.
And what about NASCAR?
Except on a horse.
Is that a sport?
What is it?
NASCAR, is that a sport?
It's the same thing as horse racing, except with less laps and a different mode of transportation.
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? I mean, that's what you get when you look at the major deals, basketball, football, baseball. When you look at the team sports, people have no problem saying, that's a sport. It's definitely not a game. But when you start getting into the individual things, and then outside, you know, in car racing, you've got the automobile, you've got the car. Horse racing, you've got the horse. In bowling, you've got a bowling ball. You've got a lane condition that could be manipulated 5 million different ways. They always try to add to the credibility of the game, but in a lot of ways, they've done nothing.
I tell you what.
They've done nothing to take away credibility of the game.
I know you guys need to go to break. Do you want to do that real quick? Because I really have a question I want to ask you guys.
Absolutely. Okay. We're gonna take our first break. When we come back, we're gonna have more with the one and only Dick Allen. Ladies and gentlemen, stick around. You know, Bowling Evolved has gained a lot of fans in the last few months, and we want to say thank you by teaming up with one of our partners, Boom Apparel, and offering you, the fans, a custom Bowling Evolved t-shirt.
Like I always say, go boom or go bust, and these shirts are unbelievably cool.
Absolutely, Eric. All you have to do is like our 2 Facebook pages. It's facebook.com/bowlingevolved and facebook.com/boomapparel. Like both pages, be entered into the contest. We will be giving away a free t-shirt once they reach 1,000 likes on their page, and we're almost there as we speak. So please get a chance, check out the shirts, be a fan of Bowling Evolved and Boom Apparel.
Go boom!
Welcome back, bowling fans. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with the one and only Dick Allen. I got to say, this has been just a remarkable conversation. And Dick, this is going to be a little bit of a kind of a throw for us, but we're throwing it to you for a question.
All right, fellas. Should bowling be in the Olympics?
Well, let's see. Should bowling be in the Olympics? Let's see. That question's been going around for a good 20 years plus that I can remember. Should it be in the Olympics? It absolutely should be in the Olympics. Will it be in the Olympics? Probably not. Nope. No chance.
All right. What are the events that you're going to medal in? Is it going to be just like your city and state tournament where you can medal in singles, doubles, and all events? Are you going to go in there and just bowl 3 games, 9 games total for your all-event score in the most prestigious sporting event that happens every 4 years?
The only thing that they could
How do you train for just 3 games? How do you train for 9 games of all events?
No, that's why if they ever did it, which they probably won't, but if they ever do it, I think
don't get me wrong. I believe that bowling should be there.
Well, of course it should be there. It should have, but I think they did have it back in the 40s or 50s. I think they did have it once, if I remember correctly. I'm thinking about a little bit of history. They might have had it once, but it would be a team situation. They'd have to figure out some sort of team qualifying, and then the matches, and then the medal rounds. They'd have to go through that whole thing. Absolutely.
Remember when they had that little deal a couple years ago? Carolyn Dorn Ballard was on TV, and they were doing that Johnny Petraglia scoring system.
Yes.
Perfect for the Olympics.
Okay.
You can have a 10-game event
Mm-hmm.
where it's total shots. Total shots. You got to knock down every pin in that frame for 10 games. Total shots.
Sure.
You figure 120 shots is the perfect score.
I mean, there could be plenty. There's all kinds of formats you could use. Absolutely. You could have. But the problem in what I think is, believe it or not, it's not played enough all the way around the world. Even though it is played all over the place, I don't think there's enough countries who could actually get involved. At least that's what I think one of their arguments is. I don't think there's enough political money behind it. I think there's a lot of political, from what I've heard and read. There's a lot of political ramifications that come with getting an Olympic sport put in. As a matter of fact, I think they're pulling. Is it wrestling? I think they're not going to have wrestling anymore.
I know, right? One of the very original sports from the Olympics back from the Greek times.
Yes, I think they're pulling it. So I think there's a lot of political money. It's all, from what I'm hearing and reading, money has almost everything to do with it.
Well,
and if they don't have the right money behind it, they could care less if it makes sense or not. It's not going to happen.
I was going to say as well, Eric, we discussed this before, I believe, when Ozio was on the show, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. We had talked about this.
Who?
David Ozio.
You remember him, David Ozio used to bowl? You remember him, right?
I don't know if I know that guy.
Yeah, I figured so. Well, back in the 40s and 50s, he was a pretty good bowler. Yeah.
Wasn't he on the
big cranker?
Yeah, big cranker who threw it straight at the gutter. He was very unique. Yes.
But no, I was just going to say, one of the things we had discussed, and Eric brought it up, was the political influence about bowling. And I agree. It's amazing that as much as the Olympics are supposed to be the showcase of amateur sports and the camaraderie of sports, there is so much influence from professional companies throughout the world. I really agree wholeheartedly that one of the biggest drawbacks is going to be that unifying factor of the money behind bowling.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's put that aside. Let's say they came to us and they said, "Look, we want you in the Olympics.
Okay.
You guys are in, but you need to come up with some better medaling formats."
Okay.
Oh, well, I can come up with one right off the top of my head, which I think would be kind of unique as far as if you look at some of the other events. You look at running, for example. You have the 100-meter, the 200-meter, the 400-meter. Why not have the same thing with bowling? 10-game, 20-game, 30-game, 40-game, 50-game, marathon-style bowling events. Why not?
Now, would you keep the same scoring? The same scoring that you do nowadays? Because now you're talking about training and you're adding a lot of luck factor, and there's not really a whole lot of luck that happens in some of the Olympic events. Either you win or you don't.
Yeah, but
so now you want to eliminate that luck factor a lot now, don't you?
Yeah, but you got to remember one thing that's very important, and this is something that falls back on the in my opinion at least, on the USBC and some of the other things. The unifying factor of what condition is going to be in the Olympics. Are we going to know what the oil pattern is going to be in an Olympic game, or is it going to be a complete surprise? Is there any way to do that fairly where there is an equal playing field for every participant? That's a question we need to figure out.
That's a good question. Maybe, this falls back to where we were talking about earlier, where this is where there's not enough science for everybody in bowling, where these people aren't getting involved deep enough at the grassroots level through the pro shops and through the proprietors to learn these kind of things, to open up new avenues of thought from amateur bowlers. I mean, there are so many good ideas out there that, like I said, if you're not well connected in one of the companies, doesn't matter how good your idea is. Nobody's going to listen to it. Nobody's going to take advantage of it because nobody's going to hear about it.
Unfortunately, a very good point as well. And you know what? I just happened to look at our record time so far for this show, and we are way over. I apologize, Dick, and I apologize to our listeners. I do have to ask you, though, Dick, would you be willing to come back next week and further on with some more topics?
I'll come back anytime you guys want me to. I get bored a lot.
Well, this is the best place to be when you're bored because we love this. We just talk.
I mean, the wife is pregnant again. You know, with the second baby on the way, so she's been going to bed early lately. And you do realize you do know what causes that, don't you? If you've got that under control yet, I'm just trying to help you out there. My explanation cannot be said on air.
Okay, I'm just curious. I think you didn't quite understand how that worked, but we can talk about it on the side if you need a little help there. Thanks. We do all kinds of therapy on this show. We do bowling. We cover all the topics on this show.
I mean, if we're way over the time and some of this is going to get cut, I can answer that.
You know what? Let me just put the timeout symbol up. We'll do that on a future show, possibly.
All right. Yeah, we'll discuss that on the next. That'll be part of our "What do professional bowlers do when they're not bowling?" That'll fit right in there. Okay.
In fact, I've been painting all the logos in my golf clubs while I've been doing this. So I've been rearranging some new colors and playing around. So I'm going to play tomorrow. I'm all excited.
There we go.
Like I said, it's always nice to have, especially the guys who've been out on tour for a good 10 years or so, 12, 13 years, and they've been around, like yourself. You've been around for a while, and you can you can give us the current stuff of what's going on out there. It's easy to watch on TV or watch on the computer, but are we going to save him? Is he going to tell us next time, Dustin, about the league, about the PBA league?
I do want to say real fast to our listeners, because we do got to go to our second break here. When Dick comes back, we were going to get into the PBA league and just several other things going on with the tour, but that's going to be something for next time. And believe me, I think after today's show, we're going to have a lot more questions and a lot more discussions next week.
Yeah, I think we'll do that. We'll discuss that PBA league. I think that'll be interesting.
You give me a call next week, and we'll talk about that. And then the week after, you guys need to have me on, and we have fun tonight. Wait till we call somebody and you let me start asking some questions to some pros.
You know what? Maybe we're gonna have that. We're gonna have our third host for the show. That's what it's gonna be.
I don't have. You know what? We need another PBA representative for Bowling East Falls. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I get it. Well, you're gonna have, because we get paid so much for this. I don't know if there's all that money to go around. I don't know.
Point. I mean, we are loaded.
I work for free.
I like that. So do we. That's good.
You're hired.
Hired.
All right.
All right, Dick. Take care. We'll talk to you real soon.
All right, man.
All right.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, stick around. When we come back, we'll have our conclusion right here on Bowling Evolved. Stick around. Welcome back, bowling fans. You know, Eric, I have to be honest. That was one of the most unique interviews we've done so far, and I really am looking forward to having him back next week on the show.
Yeah, I mean, Dick is great. I mean, I obviously when I was on tour, I remember him. He really hasn't changed much. He's the same guy. He's got the same looks. Obviously, he's gotten a little bit older. He's got married. He's got a kid. Got another kid on the way, etc. But it's still Dick. He's still a lot of fun, and he's got a very unique way of looking at things, especially out on tour. And I think it's refreshing to talk to somebody like that. And he's still living the dream out there right now, so it's nice to hear his perspective. As different as it may be, it's still his perspective, and it's very refreshing and it's very enlightening. And I think not only myself, I appreciate it, and of course I know you do, but I'm hopefully the people who, the 4 or 5 people who listen to this, I hope they'll appreciate it as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, I have to be as forthcoming as I can. You're right. It's so refreshing to have somebody involved with the PBA. Not that, many people have danced around questions we've asked, but to be so, outgoing with their opinion. I think that's the only way that bowling, as I've said many times before, that bowling's going to improve. You have to be willing to voice what's on your mind.
There's nothing wrong with being fresh and bold. This is fresh and it's bold. Because, the PBA is definitely not old, meaning they're fresh and they're bold. They're trying different things, that PBA league, etc. They're trying to respin things and turn things compared to what it maybe used to be. So if we go on the air and speak about bowling as a topic, but we spin it, or you get a different, fresh opinion from someone like Mr. Allen, I think it's very cool.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to take us towards the end of our show. I do want to plug one quick thing here that I was involved with, and I was very fortunate to be able to bowl, and I was invited to bowl in the Laughlin Pro-Am. I was invited as a celebrity pro out there, and they put it on for the kids, the CRUSBC and the Laughlin Youth Program. And Eric, that was exactly what I believe is going to help bowling. They got the local scratch bowlers in town to come down, bowl with the kids. They provided pins, they did autograph sessions, they did a whole bunch of things, and they made it seem prestigious. And I feel so grateful that they were willing to do that, and I feel very humbled that they asked me to come out as well. And I don't understand why more organizations don't do something like that.
Well, from what I'm gathering, since I wasn't invited, from what I'm gathering, it was quite the nice event, and it looked really cool, and I'm glad you had a good time, and I'm sure you represented yourself quite well, and of course Bowling Evolved very well, and maybe next time you would maybe ask a touring champion who just happens to live in Henderson, Nevada, to maybe come out and help out. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, I will say this. If you are willing to come, and I am associated somewhat with the local association, would you be willing to come out for our next event?
Oh, sure. Now you ask me. Of course I would. Of course I would. Let me check my busy calendar. Oh, okay, I'm good. Yes. No, I would love doing something like that. It's always great to do the charity stuff or the stuff for the kids, because I was fortunate enough to spend 15 years on the national tour, and I actually was able to do something that I loved and made a fairly decent living at it, as you could say. It'd be nice to show the kids nowadays that to give something back and get involved in any way I could. I would be humbled.
Yeah, I know they would appreciate it, and like I said again, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate being asked to go out there and to participate. I do want to say, though, I did get to run into a couple of the kids that I used to coach, which was very exciting. I do want to give them a shout-out on the show tonight. Sisters, actually, Emma and Lydia Kraft. They are both bowlers out there, both shot some highest games for them, a 190 and a 240 game coming up through the ranks, and I'll tell you, they're just starting to get into some tournaments, and they're living the dream, Eric. They're the ones going out there, and they're the future of our sport.
And that's why you got to support them 100%. Good for you.
Good for us. I mean, and as I've said many times, and I say it with the most passion to all of our listeners, if you can do something to support the youth programs in your areas, please do what you can. It doesn't take much to take a kid under your arm and show them the ropes and prove to them that, bowling really does have some relevance. There is prestige, and gosh, believe it or not, it's still a lot of fun. I mean, at least for me it is. I don't know about Eric anymore, but...
Oh, no, it's fun. I love it. It's great. No, bowling, there has to... As much as bowlers like to complain, bitch, cry, and whine about it, if they didn't love it, they really wouldn't do it. And if you don't love it, you know what? You shouldn't really do it. It's kind of a love-hate situation, but most of the time the people who do it, especially who do it often, they definitely love what they do. And you have to take the good with the bad, but just be fortunate enough that you're able to compete and able to do it. And that's what it's all about, and that's what this great country is all about.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us into the end of our show. We want to thank you again for sticking around and listening to us. You know, we've been doing this for almost a year. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary, Eric.
Wow, we're going to have a party.
We might have to. Again, for those of you who have not checked it out yet, please check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/BowlingEvolved, our website bowlingevolved.com, on Twitter at bowlingevolved, or any of the numerous ways you can reach us, including our Gmail, which is bowlingevolved@gmail.com. Also, visit our friends at Boom Apparel, as we mentioned in the commercial earlier. We do have the contest running. If you do like our Facebook page and their Facebook page, you'll be entered into the contest to win a free custom Bowling Evolved t-shirt, which I think is pretty cool. But ladies and gentlemen, for Eric Forkel, I've been Dustin J. Markowitz. Have a great night.
Good night.